Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Protection Gap podcast. In this episode, I am going to run through another type of objection and share with you how best to handle them. Right, so picture the scene. You've presented your advice, you've got all the quotes ready, you're very optimistic about getting a yes on all of them. And then the customer comes back with something like this. Yeah, nah, I don't want to do them. Yeah, we'll do the mortgage life insurance, but I don't want that income protection thing. Now, whether it's a complete decline of everything or a partial decline of something important that we know the customer needs, this is a real curveball for us. We've presented our advice. We've given it our best shot. And they just said no. It might not be as direct as no, but let's be honest, it's a no. Whatever the reasons are for saying no, they believe vehemently in that decision. So the first thing you should do is acknowledge their decision. Show them that they're heard. I hear what you're saying. I can understand why you might feel like that. The next thing to do is actually find out why they said no. It could be something simple. And here's a very non-confrontational way of doing this. Do you mind if I ask, what's giving you some doubt about this particular cover? There you go. It's not combative and it's showing a genuine interest. Typically, there are about 3 types of answer to this. First one is cost. And because we just asked that inquisitive question, they should tell us, yeah, it's the cost that's an issue. Suddenly, that's not a no. That's just an objection over price, and we're back in the game. The second one is that they haven't really understood what the product was, and they might be confused, so would rather say no than make the wrong decision. Well, if they just told you they don't quite understand it, once again, we're back in the game. You just take a breath, go back, find out what they don't understand, and use your expertise to explain it again in a way that they will understand. And finally, they're saying no because they just don't think they need the cover. They have not bought into it. Let's use IP for this example. They might say something like, well, I've never been off sick. It'll never happen to me, so I think it's a waste of money. Well, as I said earlier, I've got 3 months sick pay with work, and I've never been off longer than that. So I'm just going to stick with my work cover then. Once again, try not to go back in and challenge the customer. Well, this is a 25-year mortgage, and you might be off more than 3 months. So what would you do then? What would you give up? How would you cope? Don't do that at this stage. They've already said no, they don't want it. You're just giving them an excuse to dig their heels in and stick to no. So if it's not wise to challenge that individual person, how can we paint the picture of the urgency of this cover without making them feel attacked? Well, that is where storytelling comes in. That's when we can use anecdotes of similar customers to that person or to that family. If you're an advisor who's been doing this long enough, you probably got your own relatable stories of an avatar like that, either a family man with kids or a single person or whatever it's going to be, that has experienced either a disastrous situation by not having the cover or had an incredible result by having the protection when he needed it. If you have your own stories, please use them. But if you haven't, I'm going to share 2 short real-life situations that happened to me so you can use them anecdotally with your clients. The first one was a family man with a wife and 3 very young children. When he was recommended IP by a previous advisor many years ago, he said, no, I've never been off sick, I don't need it. But the advisor, in fairness to him, didn't give up and got the guy to take out full IP. Now, this man was young and fit and in his mid-20s, and yet 6 months later, he was diagnosed with MS. Without IP, they would have lost everything. Now, I actually saw this customer about 20 years after the original advice. Now, when I commented that he was lucky that he'd taken out income protection insurance, he stopped me and said, this is more than just insurance. This has paid for my mortgage. This has paid for every family holiday for 20 years. And because of this protection, I've been able to put 3 of my girls through university and give them the start in life that they deserve. That's what income protection has done for me. So if you've got a husband or wife that's saying no, they don't need it, then you can use this as a relatable story. Again, the effect is you're not actually telling him to his face what happens if, but you're saying, I heard about someone exactly the same as you, and they also said no, but this is what happened to them. The second one will cover a different type of avatar. This was a single guy working for the DVLA. So he had good sick pay. I'd recommended full income protection to him. It wasn't very expensive. And he said, no, I've got 6 months sick pay. I won't be off sick more than that. I'll be fine. 9 months later, he was back in the bank because his mortgage was 3 months in arrears. It turned out that about 4 or 5 weeks after I'd seen him, he'd gone off work with anxiety. His 6 months full pay had run out, and now he was unable to pay for his mortgage and his bills. And there was nothing I could do about it. 6 months after that, he had to sell his house, move back in with his mum. So there's another true story that happened to a single person. So suddenly we have real life stories for a family person or a single person. And here's how you'd introduce those stories into the conversation. So you've just said, I completely understand why you might feel like that, Mr. Customer. You remind me of a client who also initially declined income protection. Now, like you, he was a family man with a few kids. And he was actually in his mid-20s. Initially, he said no, because as you said, he'd never been off sick. He couldn't see the benefit in it. And yet 6 months later, this man was diagnosed with MS, etc., etc., etc. So we've acknowledged what he said. Then we've used an anecdote to make it relatable to that specific customer. And then we ask for the business again. But rather than blurting out, so do you want to go for it or what? There's a more powerful way of doing it. So are you absolutely sure you want to take such a big risk with your future financial security? Your 35-year mortgage actually means you have to pay the mortgage and all the bills every month for 420 months in a row. And you've only got enough sick pay to cover 3 of them. So those are the 3 parts to overcoming a no. Now, if you don't like telling stories or you haven't got one yourself, then you can still go from no to acknowledging the no and then asking for the business again using the sentences I just gave you. Give him a go and let me know how you get on.